Ah, yes, live service games. There's always a few that are really good, but most of the time they're really, really bad.
What is that?
And I think the recent release of Suicide Squad does prove my point there.
I'd show you. See? He's just sitting there, silly goose. What a goober.
However, there are plenty of examples that do relatively well. Whether it be Genshin Impact, Smite, Destiny, all of these games I do play on the channel frequently. Not so much with Destiny anymore, but I do play these games and they're all relatively successful, regardless of what you might think about them. With that said, I feel like there is some type of confusion. Whenever we see a live service released, some people just don't seem to understand why these can be so successful. Now, of course, there's companies that do understand, but this seems to be a rare phenomenon. And I think the ones that are the biggest failures are the AAA titles that try to be a live service. The first few that come to mind is obviously Marvel's Avengers and the tragic tale of Anthem. Those games make great examples, and of course we have the newest, in my personal opinion, Suicide Squad. In fact, I think this may end similar, if not the same way as those previous titles. These games do so badly, I personally believe, because they are not free to play. I think live service games are the most successful when they are free to play. One of the most successful of all being Genshin Impact and Fortnite. Both of these games are free, with the exception of Fortnite when it was initially released. Now, you can play these games absolutely for free, yes, but you will have to pay if you want to increase the joy that you have with the game. In other words, you would more or less need to buy something in order to, get the full experience out of the game. So free-to-play games, you can play them for free, but they're not free, if that makes sense. I can play Genshin right now, and I could absolutely get the banner character immediately. Well, not really. I would have to play through hours upon hours of the campaign, complete all the side quests, and by the end of the week, I am pretty sure I would get that banner character. But that would require me playing the game for hours. Or I could spend like $100, and then I'm pretty sure I'd get her then. But you see my point? These games are free to play, but not really. And it's this part that makes them so successful. You can play the game, sure, but at the end of the day, you're still going to end up paying for it in some way or the other. And trust me, this is not a maybe you won't spend anything. You will spend something eventually on these games, especially if it's something you really like. I didn't think I was going to spend anything on Genshin Impact, but here I am $100 less later. Now, of course, this is more of a rough estimate of what I have spent on the game over the years I've played, but I have still spent about this much, if not a little bit more. Moving on from there, my point is, you will spend something on these games eventually, and this is why they become so darn popular and have such massive revenue payouts. It's free to experience the game, but there's always paid shortcuts, and for the most part, a lot of people do buy into the paid shortcuts because it takes less time, and in turn, it just means they can get what they want faster. Or maybe they want their favorite character to look just a little bit cooler. Or maybe there's a battle pass that gives them a whole bunch of cool cosmetics that they can use in the long run. And free-to-play games like this are always so successful. One I actually played actively on the channel is Seven Knights. This is one of the greatest, if not the greatest mobile game ever to be released. It lasted, I'd say, about a good 8, maybe 9 years. It was very successful, and it did the same thing Genshin did. It was completely free to play, and it had the waifus and husbandos. You guys get it. It was a very famous game for all those reasons. And it was a very good game to play as well. Extraordinary gameplay. I loved that game to death, and it's actually what built my channel up to what it is today. Thanks to all of you guys for watching those videos I made on it years ago. The key part of how this game became so successful is because it was free to play. And the same goes for all the games I just mentioned earlier, like Smite and the rest. These are all free to play games. Destiny is more or less free to try, but you get what I'm saying. These are games you can jump into immediately, try out and see if you really like it, and if you are really enjoying it, you can increase the joy you have in the game by buying something. Maybe buying an expansion in Destiny, maybe buying a couple skins in Genshin Impact, or like I said, just buy one of the characters. If you're really enjoying your time in the game, you can invest more into it, and eventually you're basically just buying the game at that point. The problem with Anthem and Suicide Squad and all the other AAA live service games is that they asked for this massive price tag up front, and then they had all the live service aspects of the game to follow. All the cosmetics, all the expansions, all of that would have costed money. So obviously this does not seem like something anyone would be interested in playing. And it's not like they're $10 or $15. These games are far from cheap. As of recording this video, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League sits at full AAA price at $70. And if you paid for the deluxe edition, of course it does depend on where you are, but it's well over $100 where I'm at. My point is, this is a very expensive game, but then it's also asking you to buy other things in the in-game shop, and in the future with whether it be battle passes, so on and so forth, all of that is asking for more on top of what you already spent. This is where these games fail. If these were completely free to play, I guarantee you people would not be complaining about it as much. Because you can't have price tags on top of price tags in a AAA game. You should be able to buy it, and that should be it. You shouldn't have to buy anything else after that. Whenever you talk about a AAA game with a AAA price, people are expecting a complete product. They're not here to sit down and wait for you to drip feed them content so they can pay you more money once that content is released. No, they want to be able to experience a game in its full. I keep bringing Elden Ring up, but that's because it's a great game. What if Elden Ring, when you bought the game, all those cool outfits, that cool armor that you saw in the game, all of it was earned through a battle pass called the Elden Pass. And then in order to get the Elden Pass fully leveled up, you would have to fight the same bosses to get XP for that battle pass, which by the way is $12.99. That would suck. People would have hated this game if that was the case. Oh, but thank goodness it's not. All of the beautiful weapons and armor in the game can be earned just by playing the game. You want the blasphemous blade? Go fight the god-devouring serpent and the blasphemous king. Once he's dead, the weapon is yours. No RNG required. And this is an excellent example of how you should make a AAA title. And that's what people want. They don't want a live service in a AAA game. Sure, it's fine in a free-to-play game like Diablo Immortal, whatever. You want to ask for $15 for a battle pass, whatever. It's a free-to-play game, right? But in a AAA game that was already expensive up front, for me personally, that's not gonna float, honey. But one of the defining reasons I even made this video is the inevitable fate of a live service game. One day, they are all going to die. They're all going to go in this graveyard of which there is no return, and there's no way we as players can ever access them again. Now, I actually mentioned this in my Overwatch video. Sometimes game developers develop an offline mode, so when this does happen, you can still experience the game in its full without having to queue up a match or worry about the game not turning on at all. Be that as it may, that is not the case for all of them. I'm going to use Seven Knights as an example again. When Seven Knights went into the mobile gaming graveyard of live services that basically every live service is going to go one day, I can't play it now. Period. There is no way I can experience the original Seven Knights game, aside from its sequel, which we do not talk about. We don't talk about that game. I cannot play Seven Knights ever again. All the memories I have of this game and all the videos I still have up on my channel are all that's left of the game. And of course, there's the really expensive merchandise that's selling for hundreds of dollars on eBay at this point. That's all that's left of the game. I cannot experience it by playing it anymore. Maybe if a modder comes by, please, and makes an offline version where I can just play the game in its full with all the new awakened characters and everything, and I can just experience the campaign in itself, then I'd say that's great. That would be awesome, but that's not the case. There is no way I can play this game ever again. And this is what happens to basically every live service game. I'll use another one, a newer one, that actually came out a few years ago. And it died in like a year. I believe it was called Genesis. This may have been either a console exclusive, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was also on PC, but I digress. Genesis was an alright game. It was very similar to Smite, where it was a MOBA, and it was more of a top-down view, similar to League of Legends, but it had very similar mechanics to Smite, and it was alright. It was kind of fun. I remember spending a couple bucks on there, but then I moved on because I unlocked basically all the characters. I just said, I'm going to take a break and come back when there's like a big expansion, because they were slowing down with their updates. I said, I'll come back later when there's something more. And I came back, I'd say like a year or so later, it was dead. There was no way I could play it again. This happens all the time to live service games, and this is what I'm afraid of. Now let's talk a little bit about Smite. You guys see me using this for gameplay a lot here on the channel because I just love the game. They have announced a sequel. Now, what's going to happen with the old game? It's still going to be here for now, as far as I understand. But once the sequel comes out, a lot of the skins, I'm saying just most all of them, are not going over to the sequel because obviously it would take them forever, literally, to port all of those skins over to the sequel with the new engine and give them the updates, make them look better. It would take forever for them to do that, obviously. Now, this is a weakness in game development, and this is something they simply cannot help. They wanted to update the engine for Smite and make it look better, make it run better, and give it a complete overhaul, but this required them to make a few sacrifices to the elders of game development. And the juiciest sacrifice happened to be your sexy skins. That's simply a weakness in game development. For now. That's something they can't help. But in order to make up for this, they are giving you currency for every last gem you spent, whether it be paid or not, in the game, so you can buy skins for the future in Smite 2, just to make up for all of the things you will lose in the sequel. And I think that's relatively nice of them. Be that as it may, there are some skins that just won't make it over to the next game. And this is something else that happens a lot in live services. Whether they make a sequel or the game is terminated in itself, every last dime you spent on that game will go with it. And there's nothing you can do to change that. This is the cruel reality of all live service games, that they will go down this path eventually. Whether it be a cruel death, complete abandonment by developers, or the game just isn't doing well enough and they have to terminate their service. This is what happens to all of them. And when you include an additional price tag on top of this, it just makes the entire thing feel even worse. Now, some paid games, as I mentioned earlier, may in fact have some semblance of a way for you to play the game after its death, but that's no guarantee. Especially if the game itself lives on the servers, there's no guarantee that that game will ever be playable once it's dead. And this is why you need to be careful with the free-to-play games out there. Even some of the good ones like Smite. I love this game, but the truth is, this will die eventually. It may not be today. There may be some good news behind what's happening to the game right now, but who knows how long that will last. Who knows how long Smite will be Smite. Who knows how long Warframe will still be here with us. Will it still be here in 10 years into the future? Will I still be able to listen to that sci-fi ambiance of my orbiter every morning? Who knows? But that's the sad part about live service games, especially the ones you love. They're not going to be here forever. This is the sad reality of every live service game, and I'm glad I got to make a video about it because not enough people are talking about this. People are spending a lot of money on games like this, but I don't think everyone is really aware of the fate of these games. They all have a grave, and one day they will be buried in it, and there's nothing any of the fans, none of the whales, not me, none of you can do to stop it. There are countless mobile games, and I mean countless. I'm sure there are thousands that you have never heard of and have just been lost to time. One of these games being Shadow Escaper. You never heard of that, have you? It was a Temple Run game that was honestly better than Temple Run. It was very good. But since it was always online, yeah, it was shut down and I can just never play it. Ever. And now, I fear that something similar may happen to the original game Smite. Maybe, but only time will tell. We'll have to see. I hope you enjoyed this video, but more importantly, I hope you've learned something from it. Be more careful with how you spend on these games, because now you know their fate. Now you know what's going to happen to them, because it is inevitable. These games will, especially the mobile ones, they will all meet the void, whether they like it or not. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help us out here on the channel. Until next time, my fellow gamers, spin wisely. Please do. There's a lot of great games out there, because there are some good live services as well. But be careful with how you spend on these games, because one day they will meet that grave. And all the money you spent will go right along with it. Take it easy, my fellow gamers, and please do have a blessed day. Bye.